Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Ciel DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Michelle Moldowan. She styles inspiring spaces, makes houses feel like homes, and she owns and operates a drapery workroom, and she's in Castle Rock, Colorado. I love how Michelle describes that she delights in walking alongside homeowners as they plan and execute home projects, from minor changes to whole house remodeling, as well as designing and fabricating bespoke window treatments across the country. I love that. It's such a beautiful description. Michelle has such a calm and gentle way about her. I love that she reveals that that's not always the case, and you'll hear about that while we're talking today. I think probably being the mom of 5 daughters prepares you for things a little differently than some of the rest of us. I hope you enjoy hearing from Michelle today. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me and agreeing to be on the podcast today.
Oh gosh, thank you for asking me. Such a privilege.
We've had so many wonderful conversations, and I think I was hesitant to ask you because I didn't want to take advantage when we had such a great rapport going. But after the 3rd or 4th conversation, I'm like, why have I not asked Michelle yet? So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Again, thank you for asking me. It feels like a big deal. Like maybe I've made it.
I think you made it long before that.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit tell me a little bit about your life, about who you are, and then we'll talk about your business.
Okay. Well, I am in the Colorado area. I am happily married. I still like him. We're going to celebrate 25 years this spring, and
congratulations.
I think I'm going to keep him. And we have 5 daughters. So that has been fun and exciting. And they range in age from 14 to 20 now. And that's been great. And then I have a workroom from home and also do quite a bit of, I hesitate to say interior design work because I don't want to frustrate the industry and the people who've gone through school and are doing that on a much more architectural way. So I would say home styling services, a lot of remodel planning and things like that. So,
I like that. I like that phrasing.
So thanks. I really had to work to figure out what the right thing was.
Well, I think it's, we've all struggled with what our clients need from us.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I stopped doing retail was because I felt like they needed so much more than I could offer comfortably and right. in the comfort zone of what I thought I was good at. And I feel like I'm better working with an interior designer, but I absolutely love that so many of us have other skills and can say, yes, that's a great color, or wait, I have some better suggestions, or can even say it nicely as opposed to me saying, what? No, you can't use that. No, not my strong point.
Yeah, that one I usually say, you pay me to not let you like that.
Yeah. That's great. I love that.
It works well.
Yeah. That's terrific. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in the business, and then I want to find out how you sort of added the home styling into the services that you were offering. But how did you get started in the first place?
Sure. We had my husband and I early in our marriage, I guess year 2, we moved from the Colorado, Denver area to Seattle, which was considerably more expensive at the time of a place to live. That's not necessarily as true now, but we bought a house that needed a little work. So my dad, I remember when we closed on that house and he was so angry that someone would sell a house that needed to be condemned to his children. But we gutted and redid that house ourselves. And then we moved from there to New York and found ourselves in the same situation and did the same thing. So I had a lot of background at that point doing that, which is not window treatment specific.
Right.
And then in New York, I joined a Mothers of Preschoolers group, and I was making things for our house and was just talking to another gal who became a very good friend at the time about where was a good place to go find fabric. And she said, "Oh, just come over. I do custom window treatments," which again, it just was not on my radar that was even necessarily a thing. And so you can look through my fabric books. And anyway, she ended up kind of taking me under her wing, and we did a project, my dining room. We did a really neat project for there, and I was hooked. And at that point, I had a neighbor that asked me if I would do cornices, upholstered cornices for her office. And I had 3 of my 5 girls at the time, and they're really close together. Yeah. So I think at that point they were, 4, 3, and 1.5 probably. But my girlfriend Robin talked me into doing it and taught me how to do that beautifully. And I did it, and that was fun. And that was kind of the entry point. It took a while for that to evolve. And I say I didn't start my business kind of started me a little bit, but years later ran into people that needed the same thing. And before I knew it, I had a referral line. I've never advertised or marketed and no, I know you're going to ask me, did I have a business plan? No,
I suspected that was going to be the answer to that.
Yeah. So it just kind of became something I could do and do at home.
Okay.
Yeah. And eventually my girlfriend in New York, she stopped doing that. And I bought her workroom table and machines and.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you moved again.
We've moved a lot. So home for me is Colorado. Mm-hmm. We went Colorado, Seattle, New York, came back to Colorado just to be closer to family and good friends. And then 2008 happened to all of us, and we needed to take a different spot. So we were in Bucks County, not far from you. Right. Actually right down the road from Kathleen at Patton and Washington's Crossing. Yeah. And then when we could, we came back to Colorado again. So, and are just saying, we're not going to leave.
Have your machines and tables and things moved with you?
They did. I acquired them actually in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So they've only had to move with me once.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So knowing that you started like a lot of us did, oh yes, I can do that for you. Yes, because I did it for myself. When you acquired the equipment and things from Robin, were you ready to say, okay, I have a business now? Was it before that? Was it when you're moving equipment that only someone who has a workroom would move?
Right. I don't know that I would ever say I was ready to say that. I mean, when I did that first project of the upholstered cornices in New York, I did that for a dear woman who I loved that lived in our neighborhood. And it was actually for her office. And there were 8 of them. And she, as a female business owner, was really pushing me to establish a business to do that. And I just, I was in this season of mothering sweet, small, little cutie pies. I just was not where my headspace was at and seemed really overwhelming. So I did not do it then. But then in Pennsylvania, the same time that I bought all of the stuff from Robin, I had run into a gal at school. We were both moms volunteering for something. And she had, for people not familiar, Bucks County is pretty wealthy. And she had a very, very large home, and really felt like she was maybe being taken advantage of by someone who had come in and quoted and given suggestions, and knew that I had tinkered in that and asked me to come look. And before I knew it, I had a house with I don't even remember. It was more than 40 windows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's when I was talking to Robin going, okay, she's asking me to do this. That was not my intention when I walked in the door. And Robin's like, well, good, because I'm done. So here, take my stuff. Yeah. And I think I felt that it was time for me to just back my husband up a bit on supporting the family. And so that's probably the point. That is the point, actually, that I set up a legal business entity and all of that kind of thing. So
I think so many of us, because it wasn't a plan to start a business or to be entrepreneurs, that we sort of dragged our feet in even admitting that we had a business, even though we already had one going. So I'm curious, you had Robin to kind of guide you a little bit. Were you thinking about things like marking up fabric and your overhead and things like that? How were you pricing?
This is an excellent question. How I was priced. I'm trying to remember how that went. I bought the Minutes Matter add-on to QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. And that first probably 2 years, I just went with the pricing in that.
Okay.
And I added a little bit of a markup to my fabric, not enough looking back now. I don't remember how I became aware of Carroll Fabrics, but I did. So I called them, and they made you buy a collection, right. So I did buy a collection of books from Carroll Fabrics, and so I marked those up a little bit and used that Minutes Matter pricing. I actually, on the old home furnishings or CHF forum, somehow I had been able to log into that without being a legit business.
Okay.
And so, that has morphed over the years, and you have it as archives on the library, which, I mean, what an incredible resource that is. So that helped me evolve and learn more. And I mean, Seal, I was doing so much that I had no idea how to do.
Right.
No idea. Yeah, I felt like it was smoke and mirrors for a period of time, but that forum saved me, and the people on there, primarily women, I can think of, Ann Johnson and Merlin and all of them. They have no idea who I am, but I feel like, they're my mom's best friend that helped me along the way, So I owe so much to that. To that community.
It is amazing to me that that kind of support can be done in, cyberspace. We help each other out. We answer questions without needing anything else from the person we answer a question for. And I love how much knowledge has been transferred and offered by the people in that group that just allowed those of us getting started to say, oh, okay, I can do this. I may not do it perfectly, but I can do this.
Yeah. And something that's so fun is, so many of the answers that I've desperately needed and looked for and found there, someone just answered a question 12 years ago, and it's still serving someone, and not just serving them, but rescuing us out of desperation at 2 a.m.
I love that thought.
I think I experienced as a young mom with a lot of kids living far away from family, community of young families doing life together and helping each other. And I didn't expect to experience that same kind of thing in a professional environment.
Okay.
I'd never heard, and probably still don't ever hear of someone working in an industry where they have that kind of camaraderie and unlimited help.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say unguarded help probably is probably
that's a good way to put it. I agree. And I preface that with, I'm not in any other industry, but I don't hear people talking about, shared information the way we all do.
Right.
So I love that. So in the process of the growth of your business and the changes, when did you start to realize that you had more to offer to your clients than making window treatments? And when did it start to become part of your business?
Well, I think it had been part of my life for so long that it was kind of part of when that merged from part of personal life to business. I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to think back. I mean, the first project I was actually built for those opinions and that guidance and stuff was probably maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
So, I mean, that is relatively fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Your podcast keeps me alive in the workroom.
Thank you.
All my friends that have no idea they're my friends that I listen to all the time. But another one that's been really good for me on a business side that I would encourage everybody to listen to is A Well-Designed Business. It's Luann Nigara.
Yes.
Certainly geared more towards interior designers, but I think gave me some chutzpah in running a business and some confidence. And no, you know what? This is how I do it. And you can take it or leave it in a nice way, not in a horrible way. But I guess, I don't know, just has kind of coached me up a little bit. So, yeah.
I've never listened to that podcast that I haven't learned something of value.
Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate is, as you said, it may be more towards designers, but because Luann's main business is a window treatment business, her grasp of what's valuable to me was I always respect that about her. I remember listening to a podcast once where one of her clients had moved from one home to another and they wanted to reuse their window treatments, or remake them. And she explained to them that every stitch that went into them in the first place had to come out before it got reused. And just the fact that she knew enough to explain that to her clients, they were like, oh yeah, we're not going to pay for that. We'll get new fabric. And so it's things like that that I pick up on in her podcast. So I definitely recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the show notes for anyone who hasn't heard of that podcast. I'd be surprised if they hadn't, but definitely Workroom should be, for exactly the reasons you're saying, that it's, there's some confidence building in listening to her podcast.
There is, but there's also a lot of reality of if someone presents a challenge and they handled it wrong. Mm-hmm. She's great at saying, wow, yikes.
She's also,
maybe let's do it different the next time, but yeah.
She's also very open about her own mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know at one time I had to message her. I was taking a run and listening to the podcast and literally had to stop. I was bent over laughing so hard at whatever her mistake was. So it's entertaining as well as educational.
It has. There's been a lot of things that I've seen in, I don't even know the right word for them, but the professionals in our CHF forum and now the library that are saying, take my word for it, do this now, learn from my mistakes, and then hearing these stories play out, on that podcast and that made me start learning from other people's mistakes. So
I don't have to make them all by myself. I can learn from other people.
Yeah. So to anybody out there that's listening to this, really actually, because I can't tell you how many years I sat and listened to all of you guys saying, learn from my mistakes. And I was like, well, yeah, but maybe this time is a little different, or this person needs whatever. And every time, I'm like, darn it, I should have learned from their mistakes.
I loved when I interviewed Ragna, who is an upholsterer in Texas. She said, I like to make my mistakes 3 or 4 times just to make sure they're mistakes. And I thought, I get that.
Yeah, totally.
So, Michelle, how did you actually learn to sew?
Oh, this is funny. So my mother was, and all the women in her family generationally were so incredibly gifted with really anything that was handiwork.
Okay.
But sewing especially. Now, my mom didn't sew a ton of stuff for our house. I mean, I do remember, my room always had cute little bedding and things like that, but she primarily watching mom sew, there was always clothes coming through. Okay. And she grew up pretty comfortably where everything was tailored for you. And she was also very, very short. So it had to be tailored for her. So she was just incredibly gifted and included us on, we were in the sewing room around her or watching her do projects. But if we would start to do it wanting to learn, I never felt like I couldn't do that with mom. But looking back, that always lasted probably about 10 minutes before she was like, well, here, let me just do that part for you.
Okay.
So I don't know that I really learned to sew from her, but I learned to not be afraid of figuring it out.
Okay. I love that.
And I learned what was possible, I think.
Okay.
So, and it's kind of funny coming from a family that was so gifted that way. I remember in middle school in, home ec, we had to do a sewing unit and we had to choose a pillow kit that we would make.
Okay.
And mine, it must have been 7th grade just based on the kit that I chose. It was a jar. I mean, it was the pillow was an image of a jar with like a caterpillar in it or something. I wish I could remember so more specifically because that sounds nuts. But I layered it wrong. So the caterpillar was on the back side of the jar, so you couldn't see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would not say I really learned sewing skills in that class, but I did take a class. So, yeah. I don't tell my clients that story.
No, you spent more time figuring it out later, probably.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about the how you came to the decision to name your business.
Oh gosh, desperation. I had no idea. I just had no idea. There had been a cute little, it's like a sandwich and dessert place at the time. At the time, the whole blogging world had taken off.
Okay.
A lot of I don't know if this was true across the board in that world, but a lot of the places I ended up in the blogosphere were very into vintage French things and things like that. So there had been a cute little sandwich dessert place here, actually in the Denver area, that I had gone to with a friend that was called Très Jolie, which I always thought was really sweet. But when I looked that up, it was taken all over the place, So I ended up with Très Jolie Designs.
Okay.
Which I think is really cute. And I love my little logo and all of that, but I have to spell it for everyone. And I am constantly explaining it. And so I'm not sure a marketing professional would agree that it was a really great idea.
Well, so much more SEW. I have to spell it every single time. So I can relate to that. Yeah. People don't get it, but it looks pretty. The French words look pretty when you see
I appreciate
I like your logo too.
Thank you.
So I'm curious. There were so many of us who, I like the way you said it, you're not so sure you started your business as it started you. Were there ever any points where you said, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore. I just can't. I need to quit.
I knew you were going to ask me that. Seal, the day, specifically night, 1 a.m, before every install, I still want to quit.
Okay.
And then the next day when it all goes in, I just think it's the greatest thing ever, and let's do it again.
And none of the problems are as bad as you thought they were going to be.
Right. And I haven't figured out how to get myself out of that cycle, but it is a joke. around our house, that it's day before install and I'm going to crash. No. So it's fine. I know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. The girls are used to kind of helping me with last minute stuff. And I say, this is terrible. I'm going to quit. And I start laughing and they start laughing. And, but I'm amazed when I listen to the podcast and people say never.
I am too. When I asked the question, I'm sure if people were watching the video, they'd be like, still surprised by that, because I think the very same thing happened here, probably more often than I was aware of. So the day before an install was always very anxiety inducing for me. I'm better now, but I'm still not great about it. And I think probably my husband and girls probably knew to stay away from me. So you're right. I'm astounded when people are like, oh no, I love this. I wouldn't ever do anything else.
No. Yeah. I want to buy every one of them a Wonder Woman costume because that's so impressive to me.
So I want to ask a two-part question. What is your definition of success? And what has been the biggest success in your business?
Okay. So biggest success, do you care what order I answer that in?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Biggest success in my business is probably that it's funny. I was listening to Rhonda's podcast, your interview with Rhonda Shanahan, I think 2 podcasts ago. Mm-mm. And her answer is exactly mine. Well, I'm talking to you. Like, that's super fun.
That's so sweet.
That's a massive win. I mean, it's very legitimizing. But also I think the fact that it has become a business, that I've never once, beat the streets and passed out cards. And I mean, I have cards. If someone asks me, I'm handing them, but really it's just gone from kind of an accidental taking on of that house in Pennsylvania to referral. It's grown very organically by referral. And now I'm just trying to keep up.
Right.
So I would say in business that's been my biggest success.
I think that's a huge success.
Yeah. And then what was the other one? The biggest challenge? Or no, just in general.
Not yet. What is your definition of success? What feels like success to you?
It has nothing to do with business.
Okay, good.
I love being a wife and a mom, and I have 5 kids that still like us, And
that is the definition of success.
Yeah. And we still like them. I mean, of course there are moments where we all probably like each other a little less than others, but, we've got sweet relationships with our families that we came from also, and I just don't think you can beat that. It's just, yeah.
I love that. So I love that I've asked this question a lot of times. I don't think I've ever gotten the same answer twice. Mm. And I love that people find new ways to describe what feels like success to them. So I love that. Relationships are the most important thing that we have. So
yeah, and I think I've known that, but my mom passed away a little over 3 years ago now, and it was an interesting, such a profound experience, I think, in anybody's life. But I really was so at peace, no matter how hard it was. I was really at peace with, my gosh, everyone who knew her, I'm sure there's some exceptions, but for the most part, people really loved her. Mm-hmm. She loved on people really well. She had 9 granddaughters that she modeled being wife and mom so beautifully to, and was it hard to say goodbye? Of course, but such a life well lived that it really was something to celebrate too. And I think that just kind of narrows things into focus on what is success, and at the end of the day, what's great.
Right. Michelle, I really love hearing that because I think that anyone who has suffered a loss in their life, whether it's been sudden or if they've watched someone suffer, at the end of the day, the grieving lasts for a long time. But when you can say it was a life well lived, and I love what you said, she loved on people. Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful legacy. And for you to be able to continue that with the way you have relationships with your family, I think that's one of the most beautiful definitions of success I've ever heard. I really love that.
Well, thanks.
I want to jump in and take a moment to thank the sponsors who make it possible for me to bring you the podcast each week. My sponsors are people in the industry that I have personally had a connection to, purchased from, or used their services. So it makes it really easy for me to tell you about them and the great things that they have to offer. Because I feel so strongly about education in our industry, I'm thrilled that as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library, I can use the resources of the library to help support the podcast. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. Angels Linings would like to invite you to become part of their family. With reputable lining comes exceptional customer service. Trust them with your linings like I do. You get 2 Tootsie Pops with every bolt of lining you receive. For smiles, satisfaction, and a sugar kick all around, call Angels Linings at 1-800-450-9368. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. If you've listened to the podcast, you know how much I've learned from Michelle Williams. And I think most of my guests have mentioned taking at least one of her classes or gotten coaching from her. Her business is Scarlet Thread Consulting. Michelle loves to work with creative business owners to help them understand all aspects of their business and to use their gifts and talents to make it profitable. Michelle is a strategic profitability coach certified in the Profit First methodology, and she can be reached at scarletthreadconsulting.com. I've also mentioned my membership with the WCAA, and I'm now a gold level sponsor, where education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to our members. The Window Covering Association of America is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. I've also been extremely fortunate to be able to work with Merrill Y. Landis Ltd. It's a family-owned and operated custom workroom and product distribution company to the trade with over 70 years of experience. And in addition to their custom work, they offer a wide variety of decorative drapery hardware. They offer Stout and Flair 21 fabrics. They have Roman shade operating systems and assembly kits. They have motorization and workroom supplies, and they serve both designers and workrooms. And you can check out the MYL Advantage at mylLTD.com. You mentioned that the installations are challenging. What's the biggest challenge for you in your business?
Um, it's changed. I think in the beginning and probably until, I don't know, a few years ago, is confidence, and I hear it in every interview you've done, I think, listening to people, how many of us reference imposter syndrome and all of that. And, it's been easier to see that lately as I've been mentoring a couple of women just getting started in this.
Oh, nice.
And especially when it comes to how they're pricing, is, I've explained, I do understand that feeling that you can't charge what someone with more experience would charge. But at the end of the day, you are seeing it through, and the client is getting that product. Mm-hmm. So it's not wrong for you to charge for that product. Right. Okay, now I got sidetracked. What was the initial question?
About what is your biggest challenge?
Oh, yeah. So I think in the beginning it was confidence and learning through all of that. And again, all of you people spread all over the place that I hear your voices all the time are who dug me out of that. So now I think I'm just a weird person. I have a lot of different interests that I get really excited about, and they are all so different.
That makes you weird.
Well, I don't know. I do business stuff very well, and I do creative stuff very well. I have a really hard time doing both of them, like mixing that. Okay. So, for example, all morning today was kind of catch up on bookkeeping, clean up my bookkeeping files and all of that. And I book, for the most part, I've gotten myself to a place where I keep up with that. But every quarter when I'm filing sales tax stuff, I do kind of a deep dive on all that. And I find that I love those days, but I love those days when they're just given to that. I don't love it when I've got a little bit of bookkeeping and then I'm in the workroom and then I'm running to meet a client, and merging those worlds is, I don't know why. My brain just doesn't do that super well.
Shifting from one type of task to another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They say that we shouldn't be multitasking for exactly that reason. It takes so much time to recover from interruptions and things like that. And I think that we get a flow going that, like you said, if you can spend a whole day doing those things, it's then continuous and you can finish and complete tasks. But if we jump back and forth, I think it's really hard to feel like productive at the end of the day.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe that is it.
Okay.
So
it's always so interesting to me what challenges each of us. I'm curious, in talking about the anticipating the problems with installations, what happens when you do make a mistake? How do you handle it for a client, and what do you internalize when there's a mistake?
I mean, I certainly don't freak out in front of a client or anything. I'm very good. I'm very calm. Mm-hmm. It does put a chink in my confidence armor for sure. And I fight that, but I, all you can do is step forward and make it right.
Right.
In another recent interview, and I wish I could remember who said it, but she said, you can feel bad for a minute, but then you got to go into problem solving mode. Yeah. And that was so well said, okay, well, be honest and make it right. And I think that clients respect that. I think the clients that I've only ever had one client actually that was extremely rude, just so rude. And that would, for the most part, I think clients really respect when someone says, you know what, I need to do that differently. So I'm going to take it and make this change.
I also have to wonder sometimes at what our own expectations of what is correct is. I mean,
oh gosh, they're so much higher than anybody else's around us.
In any industry. I mean, you've done renovation work on more than one home.
Mhm.
You pay someone to come in and do projects in your home that are custom. I mean, we had a fireplace built, and at least twice the guy said, "Oh, you know what? That's not working out the way I thought it was. I'm going to go get this wood and I'll be back." I'm like, I didn't look at it like it was a mistake. I looked at it as, oh, there are things that couldn't have been anticipated. There are things, whatever. It all turned out beautiful. I don't focus on what didn't go the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
But I never questioned his integrity, his ability, his intelligence. I just assumed, okay, that's part of the process. But I don't know that I always translate that to my own work. Like,
oh, for sure. I mean,
that mistake. How could I have not known that?
yeah. I mean, we're so much harder on ourselves than most people. I know there are people we'll run into that that's not true of, but I just, again, I think that honesty and transparency that way, it earns more respect than it loses. I mean, maybe if you were just a disaster and 10 efforts in a row, it just wasn't going well, right. And I get it. But yeah, I think you just make it right.
I like that. You talked about how much the forum and now the library have been helpful to you. Have you taken any business classes or hands-on classes that have been exceptionally helpful to you? Or have you read any books that you find really helpful?
I've taken a couple classes, but the classes I've taken have been pretty project specific. For example, Elke's Roman shade class or hobbled class, because I had one of those coming, and I've made them before, but I really, again, it's that confidence thing. It's kind of nice to see how everyone else puts it together.
Yes.
Ann Johnson, I just did her ripple fold for a project for that. And so classes wise, it's been one-offs here and there.
Okay.
Books, you have to understand. I fall asleep reading really quickly. So
a lot of people use that to go to sleep.
Well, that's the problem is I get 2 or 3 pages in and I fall asleep and then I don't remember the last 1.5 pages. So it's really,
it's a slow process.
It's a slow process. I used to read anything that my kids were reading ahead of them. Mm-hmm. And then I raised readers. So there's no way I can't keep up. So I'll skim through, I'll flip to a couple of pages, and if if it all looks up and up, we're good. But I will say I've taken a lot out of the Profit First. Mike, I can't say his last name. Thank you. Yeah. I really appreciate you bailing me out on that.
I'm a huge fan of his. Yeah.
Yeah. So I set that up. I don't have it refined, but I do have that set up. I do like that. This is going to make me sound like an old church marm or whatever. But I really do go back to the Bible a lot when I'm feeling unsettled or when I just don't know how to handle something. I don't even necessarily know where to look all the time, but it is just settling and reminds me of what matters.
Okay.
That's probably more of a personal side. Another one that I loved, I think for any mom is really fun to read, is I believe it's called Footprints of a Pilgrim. And it is kind of the life story of Billy Graham's wife, Ruth Bell Graham.
Okay.
And she wrote poetry, which not a lot of people know. So it's, stories from her life told by her family, interspersed with photography and her poems and stuff. I mean, what a spitfire woman. It's a fun, very easy read. It's sweet to see just a woman who's done life and motherhood and with some challenge, and how she kept that spitfire. I don't know. That's a fun one. Not business related, but
that's okay. This is why I asked the question, because I always love hearing what people enjoy reading and what inspires them, whether it is a business book or whether it's something that's, I love biographies. I love autobiographies. So I always love to hear things like this.
Yeah.
All right. Love that. Do you use much technology, Michelle?
I mean, I think we all do now, right?
It's kind of hard not to.
Yeah,
I think we use so much technology, we don't realize how much we use.
exactly.
I think we're actually at that point.
Oh, for sure. Because how hard is it to function through a day if you don't have access to your laptop or phone or whatever? So definitely my QuickBooks is great. And I don't know how I would have done all of this without that Minutes Matter QuickBooks and quoting. I don't even know if that's still out there. I bought it so long ago.
Yeah, Minutes Matter is still out there, but I don't know about the QuickBooks and quoting. I'll look into it and put links in the show notes.
Yeah, that was just amazing because it loads your QuickBooks with your item lists and quotes and groups. I don't know. That was great. I still use it. Obviously, I've updated some pricing and things like that. Because it's been, I think, 10 years since I bought that.
Okay.
I am tinkering with using Gantt charts. I think that's how you say it. I think it's spelled Gant.
Yes.
To figure out how to tackle the beast that is estimating how much time things will take.
Okay.
And you actually might know the answer to this, but someone somewhere in our world did a lunch and learn or something with WCAA, I think is where I saw it, where they were using one to do just that. You know, they had like a group of tasks that would load in for drapery or whatever, and you could adjust how much time it took you. Yeah. I can't find that again. I watched this webinar and I can't find it again.
So familiar, and I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if it was I know there are people who use QuickBooks. I know there are people who use Excel and create their own estimating forms, but I'm not quite sure. I'm going to put the question in the podcast under your podcast. I'm going to put the question, see if anybody else knows what it is.
Well, and I do like Excel. I'm trying to build Excel out to automate some of that, repeats, for example, and calculating yardage with repeats. And I know there's a mathematical way to make all of that much easier. I just also have to figure it out and not recreate it every time.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I've wasted so much time in reinventing the wheel over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know. Those tasks, automating those tasks, I think would be my next big success, I feel like, in my business, for sure.
I like that. That's a question I should start asking. What's your next big success? I like that.
Oh, that would be a good question to ask.
Definitely have to give that to people ahead of time so they can think about it.
Yeah.
What 3 business items can you not live without?
Oh, QuickBooks, my workroom table. I would love to say my machine, but I have a love-hate relationship with her.
The name, some of us name our machines.
Bertha has an attitude problem, I think. And I can say that because she's not listening, but I feel like she can hear me talking about her when I'm in the same room. And then
I believe you're right.
She decides to really let me have it. So that was 2, QuickBooks and my table. You know what I really love?
What?
I think I bought it through the Worker Marketplace. It's that speed pleating.
Yes.
Gizmo. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry that that's what I'm naming it. I'm sure whoever came up with it is really disappointed in me right now. But
Ann Johnson, it's her product.
Okay.
And
thank you, Ann.
Yes, I have used it and I really love it. It's so much faster.
Yeah. And my do fix is I probably am 2 years in on that. Mm-hmm. I could live without it, but I do feel like that every day would feel cloudy if I did. Oh, I really, really love her.
Yeah. All right. So one you don't love and one you do. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you ever do any sewing for pleasure?
I rarely have the time to do that.
Okay.
When I actually get to make something for us, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing to accept about turning a business, something you love, into a business.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more to it than just creating beautiful things. There is running the business, but there's a limited time left over at the end of the day, and you're still raising children, and that's your priority. So yeah, it does change when you create a business out of something you love. We've been told many, many times to follow your passion, but it changes once it's your business.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
What is your favorite thing to make or do within your business?
Shades are really fun when you get them just right.
Mm-hmm.
The cordless systems on shades. I think I just have a chink in my armor, actually, from one experience where I just don't feel like I got one quite right.
Okay.
And man, sweet Elkie talked me through it, and so did Steve with Marijuana Landis. And it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
But I've got 6 working like butter, and then one that's like, So, but definitely shades feel like, ooh, I have a skill. I know how to.
Yeah, there is something really satisfying about them, isn't it?
Yeah, pleating to pattern is super satisfying to me, when that can work. It was a favorite thing to make, and
what's your favorite thing to make?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay. What do you do extremely well?
Pattern match.
Okay. I do love when that comes together well. That feels like the most underappreciated thing that I can do. Like I point it out to my designers all the time.
Yes. Yes. And you
I want them to see how perfect it is. Like that's one of those things that when I'm done with it, I'm like, look at me what I did.
I know what I'm doing. I feel like going door to door and telling people, check this out. Like, this is amazing. And I also point it out, and I think you should, because I think it's really important. Again, Rhonda Shanahan does this very well with showing people the process and what matters.
She does. Yes.
So, and I point out to my clients, like, I want you to understand what it is you paid for. Right. And pattern match is one of those.
And I think with pattern matching, I remember I interviewed Lee Tran recently, and I remember when she was still making window treatments, and I was talking about how you can cut long panels, and the design varies from cut to cut. Mm-hmm. And she told me that the standard was 1 inch for every 100 inches. Now, this was a while ago. I don't know if that's still accurate, but I was like, and what panels do I make that are less than 100 inches? So that means it can be off an inch. So when I get a long panel pattern matched from top to bottom and everything matches all the way down, that, like, I want to explain to people how rare it is to get fabric to match up properly, and how magical it is that Ann Johnson taught me how to make that work. And I think it is one of those things that if it's not right, it's awful. And when it's done well, the way we are accustomed to doing it, it just fades into the background. You don't see it.
Exactly.
Which is what it's supposed to do. You're not supposed to see the seam, but it still feels like a really important skill. So I love that that's what you do really well. What do you not do so well?
Estimate how much time something will take me.
That is so hard. I'm still not good at that.
Yeah. I have nothing to say other than I just can't seem to dial that in. I am starting to do I probably have been for a year, do time studies. It's very unscientific way of doing it. So I guess that's helping a little bit, but yeah, that's hard for me.
Okay. What about you would surprise people?
I've probably already said it. I think the fact that I have 5 kids, I have 5 girls, so they're all girls. That surprises everybody.
And you look so young.
Oh, thank you. I'll pay you extra for that.
Being the mother of 2 girls, I know that sometimes it can age you.
Yeah. Yeah, that surprises everybody. My mother was Brazilian, so I'm actually half Brazilian.
Okay.
That surprises everybody because I have my dad's coloring.
Okay.
And he's, good old white boy.
Okay. Yeah, I did not. As long as I've known you, I did not know that about you.
Okay. Yes, in fact, one of my girls has my mother's coloring. She's got darker olive skin and brown hair, but she has blue eyes still. So we joke around. We call her our brown baby. And yeah, she looks like mom. But that always surprises people.
Yeah, and how nice for you to have a daughter who looks like your mom and to remind you of your mom.
Yeah,
Love
that is kind of fun.
Love it. Michelle, in what ways do you think you are resilient?
I don't quit every night before an install.
There you go.
I show up the next day and get it done. Gosh, you know what? I mean, this makes me sound full of myself, and I really
wait a minute. Before you say that, I will assure anyone who's listening, you are the furthest from full of yourself of anyone I've ever known. So go ahead.
We've moved a lot. And, had our kids away from family for the most part. And I don't know. I mean, I just kind of feel like that's part of life. And, but when people hear about the cross country moves and the 5 girls and the business, they always seem to think that's a really big deal. And I guess it is. I mean, it's a lot to juggle, but I guess it just feels so normal to me.
Which I think that's why I'm so intrigued by resiliency, because the people who I speak to who are resilient seem to think it's like, well, you just keep going and you just do this and but that's not always the case for other people. But when you're resilient, I think you do kind of go, okay, well, this is going to be a challenge, but I can do it,
Yes, I do think that the challenge in that is a lot of the people who think you just keep going. I think we're not good at recognizing when we're wearing thin.
I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. What traits do you think an entrepreneur needs to have to be able to do this business in particular?
Patience.
Okay. Patience,
I would say the ability to just, scrape the mud off your knees if you fall down and keep going. Humility, because I think it's so important to be able to be honest with what you know and don't know and ask for help. The beautiful thing about this industry is you rarely get punished for that, just persistence, just keep going. Yeah.
I love that. So I will put a link to your website. Are you on social media? Do you have a Facebook and Instagram?
Between you and Rhonda, I'm doing it. I don't know. I know. I do have my Instagram account set up, and there will be something on it by the time you post.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure then. I will put links to that. Okay. So as much as I hate this because I'm enjoying our conversation, I'm going to ask you the final question.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone who's new in the business? And you said you're mentoring, so I'm curious what you'd love to share. And what advice would you give to someone who's been in business for a while?
I think that those two are going to go hand in hand for me. I think for someone new, again, it's okay that you don't know stuff. No one gets into this knowing everything. you're going to find a lot more success if you're open about that and ask questions.
Okay.
I will say, look for the answer. There's a lot of resources to look for the answers before you ask. Mm-hmm. Just so you don't wear people out if the answer's sitting right in front of you, so I definitely would dive into the forums and that kind of thing. And just, I don't mean kill yourself looking. I just mean, if something comes up you don't know how to do, search through those real quick. And then if you don't find the answer, ask the question.
Okay.
That influences every aspect of what you're doing in this business, the ability to ask for help. And again, people are so willing to do it. Get the right equipment also.
Yeah. Makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference in what you send out, and it makes a ginormous difference. I know that's probably not really a word, but in your experience putting it out. I think that will keep you out of the weeds of discouragement.
I agree.
So, and it's okay to do that slow. I've acquired, I bought my first grommet drapery, for example. I bought the heavy duty grommet press and what I needed for it. And I can't imagine having done that without it, so it's not like you've got to go fully furnish a workroom week one. You just get it as you need it. And then for people still in the business or who have been in for a while, stop and pat yourself on the back for all the things that you've learned and look at where you've come from and what you've learned. There is a lot of satisfaction in sharing that with people who are new. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think you don't realize all the skills that you've packed away, and almost until you start helping someone else. And then they'll ask you a question and you know the answer and you're like, oh, I knew the answer to that. Wow. Yeah.
Michelle, I think that's wonderful advice, because I don't think that we pat ourselves on the back enough. Mm-hmm. But I think I love the idea of sharing your knowledge and recognizing, oh, I knew the answer to that. It's like a twofer. You get to help someone else and you get to recognize your own abilities. I love that.
Totally. And the fact that our industry is as active as we are online, mm-hmm. Is a blessing and a curse. I mean, the blessing is I don't think there's any information you need that's not out there or attainable mm-hmm. in that community. And you don't feel alone. Because you don't feel alone, I think it's easy to forget that it actually really is good to have an in-person, face-to-face camaraderie with people close to you. Yes. And that's important, and it is different. It is different than just doing it digitally. And so, Rhonda Shanahan and I live maybe 4 minutes away from each other, and it's very funny how we ended up meeting. It was through a mutual friend that has nothing to do with the industry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's like, you guys have to meet. So we went and had breakfast together, and we're like industry soulmates a little bit, but she's upholstery. I'm more drapery and design stuff. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's so helpful. I think both of us would say, for us to have someone that is an artisan and takes it seriously, the quality of what we do.
Right.
And to bounce things off of. And even if I'm doing, a window treatment, something that I know she doesn't necessarily have the experience with the window treatment side, I know she understands how important what I'm doing is and kind of has the mind to kind of chat through all of that. I don't know. That camaraderie has been really sweet, and sharing a cocktail every now and then and a good laugh is really nice too.
It's very important to our sanity. I think having someone, I agree with you. I think it's so fantastic that we have all of these opportunities to get answers online, but being able to be face to face with someone, or have someone in our workroom, or meet up at someone's workroom and just know that they understand where you're coming from, or even just being able to talk through, all right, this is what I think is going to work, and having them listen and understand is so valuable.
Yeah. And don't wait. If it doesn't look like that exists around you, don't wait. Call another workroom. Say, let's have breakfast. Create it. Be that person that creates it. It will bless you for so long in such a sweet way.
I think that's wonderful advice. Michelle, I have enjoyed this so much.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me again. That was kind of a big deal. You're kind of a big deal, Phil.
My pleasure. Thank you. It was such a pleasure for me to spend some time with Michelle. We have had a few phone conversations about some things on the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library, and it was just so nice to get to know her a little bit better and hear her story. Even though we had talked before, I really didn't know her whole story, so it was really wonderful for me to hear it. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Michelle today. I thought that her definition of success and some of the advice that she had for people in the industry, especially those of us who've been in business for a while, were just wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.